Perfect. I love the prop. Good morning. It's Wednesday, October 3rd. This is Talking Point Live, coming to you live from the campus of Dixie State University through the auspices of the Community Education Channel. And again, my thanks to the crew here to go through and put things together. My name is Eric Young. I'm here with
Jennifer Kohler. And
we're on a different set today. We're kind of making the tour, the studio tour as we go around.
Yeah.
There, and if you're wondering why we don't have a common look that pervades throughout our show, it's because we've told the crew to make it simple, to just put us wherever the cameras land in either studio. You know, if you haven't seen the facilities here at Dixie State University, you ought to come on out and take a look, because it's quite impressive in terms of the production value,
and also
the production quality,
the talent of the people
that's behind this,
yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. So hats off to CEC. Appreciate what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, today's October 3rd.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are we doing?
Well, we haven't spoken much in the last few days, really. We've been busy.
It's been radio silence between the two of us.
Really?
You were up at the ranch, and I was in Monterey.
Yes. I was out near Strawberry Reservoir, and no internet connection for a few days, which was really nice.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But I've been wanting to get to this football thing about the NFL and the take a knee issue.
That's almost, what knee issue? What NFL thing are you talking about?
Right, so exactly. And so, but I think it's an important conversation, but yet I'm postponing it, if you'll agree, for at least a little bit longer, because
I think we're going to have a lot to talk about here, even within the next couple of weeks as things progress with the
yes.
I don't even know what to call that anymore.
To me, it's a national identity crisis. It's a national referendum. It's much bigger than just the individuals.
It's becoming a referendum on gender.
It is.
Altogether.
It is. It is.
And this being the whole Kavanaugh-Ford debate. And I call it a debate because it's really not even, it's more partisan, I think, than anything at this point, as opposed to really getting down to the character of the nominee and what that even means to the Supreme Court or to the people anymore.
You know, and so you bring up a point, and I guess one reason I feel like, I'm just kind of curious, because along this topic, my husband and I were in a very lively discussion over the merits of this, or the happenings around the Kavanaugh hearings and the Blasey Ford testimony. And then he said something about Robert Mueller, which is not related directly, being friends with Jim Comey, which is not related directly, and I lost it. And I said, I don't want to talk about this anymore. And I don't remember ever in 42 plus years of marriage being so adamant about not wanting to talk about something.
Now, there's got to be something more to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so what else was said? I mean, so he's somehow he went from Kavanaugh to Mueller to Comey. What was the genealogy of your?
What is the connection?
Of your conversation that way?
Between
they're
those,
all men. Was that the conversation?
It's how are we going to get to the truth? And how much does the truth matter? And it was like, I'm depending on Robert Mueller, his credibility, and his morality and his integrity, yes, to get to the truth, okay? And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating to be in this environment and so constantly being denied access to the truth.
Why is Mueller's investigation going to be kind of the penultimate manifestation of that? Why can't you or I, or we, go through and just gather our own evidence and come to?
We can't. First of all, because we don't have access to important evidence that matters. We only have access to what we're fed through the various forms of media.
Are we feeding, or can we eat though? Can we go through and investigate on our own? And while we're not going to have the hard, fast evidence or conclusions from an investigative committee, we certainly can go through and come up with a preponderance of evidence as to character at the very least, which doesn't seem to really matter anymore anyway. Well, maybe I'm just negating my own argument with this.
Well,
I've taken you off track.
No, I'm following along with your food analogy, okay? You know how I am about the food in the media.
Yeah.
So when you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself,
I'm not being force-fed. I'm going through and selectively picking morsel by morsel.
A very limited smorgasbord of offerings.
I disagree.
All right.
I think I've got a pretty broad swath of offerings that are out there. And I've been able to find solid reporting, and I never thought I'd say this, even in media outlets that I normally wouldn't have gone to begin with.
Okay.
There. So it's not the medium's not the message, it's the reporting that happens within them. It's the individual journalist who has had the ethics and the integrity to go through and find what needs to be said.
You're exercising a certain amount of trust and faith in those sources based on...
Well, I've vetted them.
Okay.
I've gone through to even to a point of where do they go to school, what was their transition into their job, what were their preliminary jobs, where are they from, all kinds of things just to make sure that, I'm not dealing with something that's out of my own purview of understanding.
Do you want to share a little bit of that specifically off the top of your head, or no at the moment? Like who?
Maybe another show.
Okay.
We got a lot to get into,
okay.
I think, here with this.
Okay.
It would be happy to.
Okay, so a couple of things are coming up then. So my emotional outburst, leaving the room, a door slamming over this.
I
slammed a door. Luckily, we were alone, miles from civilization. But I was...
That must have been one heck of a slam.
It wasn't interesting. But the point being is that this is a deeply emotional subject, besides the fact that it's intellectually challenging and socially difficult. I mean, this whole process, this Kavanaugh, Blasey Ford, Senate Judiciary, Supreme Court nomination, Democrat, Republican, Trump administration package is so fraught with meaning and importance. And it's a microcosm of how I relate to my government and how I relate to the truth and how I relate to information. It's a big deal. And in my classes I say, okay, what is the overriding universal principle that every single human, born no matter when on the planet, where on the planet, time period, culture, what's the one truth we all have in common? What do we know? And I put on the board, life is blank, okay? Life is dangerous. Humans know that. We're wired for survival. It's all about surviving. Life is dangerous. And so if you're not right, you can't ascertain reality. You can't ascertain how big the saber-toothed tiger is or how fast the bus is traveling in your direction. If you can't approximate reality accurately, you are in danger of dying. And every human relates to information that way. Am I right or do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I'm fascinated with that because you're speaking from an entirely fear-based perspective.
Yeah, life is dangerous.
Life is dangerous.
It is, fundamentally.
When you went, life is blank, I reverted back to a T-shirt that was given to me by my son with a Jeep on it with a surfboard on top that said "Life is good." That's where I went to. Was life is good, and then you started getting the saber-toothed tigers and the velocity of the oncoming bus, which is hysterical, by the way. I think it's. And I guess I just don't think that way.
And yet, listen to you and I, Mr. Hypervigilant.
Absolutely.
How you live your life.
I'm a PTSD individual. I'm hypervigilant.
Yes.
But I've been able to turn a corner on that at some point.
You survived it, and so you're not worried anymore.
There's a film out a long time ago. I think it was Jeff. He survives an airplane crash.
Okay.
And he thinks he's invincible as a result of that.
Great.
Right, and it's not a comedy. Okay, I mean, seriously, he takes some risks and he walks along rooftops and.
Not Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It would be like, I
in
can
the show.
picture Jeff Bridges.
Right, yeah, and it's, I guess maybe in a way it kind of feels like that. But my living is attributed to that as well in terms of our adventures and what we do. The life is good. I see the danger, I feel it, I live it. When I'm on my motorcycle on a single track up on a cliffside and winding my way down Schaefer Canyon or something.
How about when you're in the car with me going to lunch and I'm driving?
I was just trying to be nice to you by not bringing up your driving in that respect.
Yeah,
but,
I'm going to argue, I'm going to push back a little bit on this with you and just say that as a human being, that's a universal truth, and it underlies
that we're all afraid
that
life is dangerous.
We are all aware that life is fundamentally dangerous.
So what are the fundamental?
That's why we get vaccinated, right?
That's another show as well.
Yeah.
There.
Or we don't get vaccinated.
I'm coming off more conservative than I ever have here, especially in this show. And you need to understand, I'm really not, as I'm listening to myself speak. I said some things at the top of the show that might have sounded really right-wing, in fact, and that's not really how I'm coming. That's not really what I feel, what I believe. So bear with me here, and maybe we'll find some level of redemption going through this.
Well, see, now
help me.
I love that you brought this up, okay? Because here's the thing: I'm thinking of Jeff Flake, right? Conservative guy. I mean, conservative, right? But apparently not conservative enough for some people, right? But conservative guy.
What's that? Right.
Yeah. Okay, and here he is, the fly in the ointment the other day.
Not just, but Collins is doing the same thing, right?
Right, but she and Murkowski have kind of been out there, sticking up for women's issues. They're kind of conservative.
Collins has taken more. She's become more assertive since last night, since Trump's mocking of Dr. Ford's testimony. There, and she's come forward with a lot more fervor than.
Well, I guess anyway, the point I was making about Flake is, and yourself, it really is probably too simplistic to peg somebody as one thing or another.
Absolutely.
Right? And so you're just kind of fleshing that out a little bit by saying you can speak outside of one little box, one little label.
Sure.
And you're, and that's where you are. Yeah. So you're just you. And you have some progressive liberal tendencies and maybe some conservative tendencies.
Sure, I think we all do.
Yeah.
But we're afraid to go through and identify maybe what those are for fear of consternation from somebody else.
Because life is dangerous. And if you don't stay inside the safety of the herd, and this is where Jeff Flake.
Or the tribe.
Right, the tribe. See, you have to be inside the tribe or you're going to get picked off by the tiger or the bus. Right? So you're in the tribe. The tribe is where it's safe. And you dare to speak outside the tribe, and that's, these people that have been coming forward on the Kavanaugh, speaking up now since Blasey Ford was out there. They have been staying in their tribes, quietly in their little tribes, excited about their prep school buddy getting on the Supreme Court and their little part of the safe world and their little social circle or their big social circle. But now, some of these people are being faced with a huge dilemma. Now it's to the point where, you know what? Maybe I have to risk coming outside of my tribe, my inside circle, sticking my head up.
Well, who else are they? Because so far all I'm seeing is Flake and Collins. And
I'm talking about former schoolmates now.
Oh, okay. I'm talking about politically left, right.
Right. So you see,
tribes.
It's not just the politicians who don't want to get their whack-a-mole head smashed by sticking it out there. Okay, now it's the social circle that's the previous classmates in the high school level, in the Yale level.
Okay.
And see, they've been quiet until now all of a sudden some of them are coming forward saying it's one thing to be a sloppy drunk. It's another thing to lie about it to the Senate Judiciary Committee. Right. That's crossing a line, okay? Sure, he was a sexually frustrated high school student that was trying to cop a feel.
But let me ask you here, where are you getting that information from?
Okay, so I'm getting that information from the New York Times.
Okay.
That these people are coming out. Now, there's probably a lot of other news sources reporting this as well.
Okay.
So
does the Times have an agenda in framing that kind of testimony?
Well, they are considered a liberal media bias. Right? So they may be more willing to bring that to light than somebody who's defending the administration. They're not going to want to play up this.
Of course not. They won't give light
Right.
to these kinds of
Right.
testimony that are coming out,
Right.
indicating that that he's been lying about
So
his drinking.
again, we circle back to who do we trust, and that's why when the Mueller thing happened, and my husband said, he's friends with Comey, I just lost it, implying that Mueller is not going to be fair and objective and have integrity. I just lost it, because it is so important to know who to trust.
Because that's really your evidence, your indicator whether or not things are corrupt. The outcome of Mueller's Mueller's investigation, I'm having a hard time expressing myself this morning. The outcome of Mueller's investigation is the indicator. That's for you.
It's not so much the outcome. I'm not hanging on that outcome per se. I'm hanging on
The actual investigation?
trusting that it will
Trusting
be
that-
it will be fair,
okay.
And Brett Kavanaugh just kept saying, "I just want a fair process." As an American, I just want a fair process. I just want my government and my FBI in this case to do, not FBI because he's special counsel now, but my government to be honest and have integrity.
Well, we do have, we can speak of the FBI in terms of their investigation into the Kavanaugh, Blasey context, their accusations that are going back and forth, and which is interesting to me because President Trump came out pretty outspoken and mocking Dr. Ford's testimony at a campaign rally last night.
I'm so glad I missed that little news bite.
It's all over the place. I looked at 7 different sources this morning, and six of them led with it there with this story, and how then it enrages Flake and Collins, but that's about it. No other conservatives are coming forward saying, okay, you know what, we gotta say something about this because it's really underhanded. Not only does he mock her testimony, but then he comes out and says he indicates that our teenage boys now are targets. That they should be afraid. We're living in a fearful time for boys and for men in that respect, because you could be accused of anything, and which is entirely deplorable. I was talking with my wife this morning over breakfast, and she's like, "How can the President of the United States actually even speak to a case while an FBI investigation is going on to begin with? How can he come forward and publicly offer an opinion one way or the other while the FBI is still going through and investigating what's going on?" It just doesn't make any sense to me. And it doesn't make any sense that that in and of itself isn't decried, at least from the legal hawks that are out there, to go through and say, you know what, you can't do that.
Okay. Unless you relate to running the United States government like you relate to running your business. See, that was his big selling point. I'm successful in business, which is doubtful if you look at the track record.
Yeah,
but
I don't believe that.
I'm,
Right.
And so any of these things like you're talking, this FBI, for him, it's an obstacle. This investigation is an obstacle towards getting his nominee on the court.
I think for him, it's a distraction that he's enjoying.
Well, maybe so.
The heat's off him for the time being.
For the moment,
right?
Right, for the moment. So, but what I'm saying is that's how he can speak up during the middle of an FBI investigation, because he has no reverence for that process. He has no respect for that process.
We're already used to that. That's just Trump, so we'll just go ahead and let him violate any terms of not being biased within an investigation, that you are the chair over this. It comes back to him to go through and say, okay, you can release this information to the Senate or not.
Well, we have to respond to it. We have to call it out.
Somebody does. Somebody
Yes.
has to respond to that. We
Yes.
can't get used to this. We can't go through and
That's just Trump being Trump.
marginalize.
That's just how he sees the United States government as rules and law as obstacles to be surmounted in his way of making a deal, right? It's
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's infuriating. So
you and Mindy were talking about that, and she raised that issue.
Yeah, which I thought was a very valid issue. I thought, yeah, absolutely. We talked about some other issues in terms of the ethics of, it's like, well, he's not tied to ethics anymore.
Okay. Anymore.
Well, not that he ever was.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, as we become conditioned to the way he thinks he leads the country, we don't even consider that. It's not
Right,
even a critique.
That's been killed off long ago.
Right.
Well, let's look at the media bias chart for a second, since I asked Marcus to put that up for us. And the reason I wanted to remind viewers of that, we've mentioned it before, but this is the version 4.0.
Right.
Generated by Vanessa Otero on her allgeneralizationsareFalse.com blog. So the reason I brought it up is this: she did a sampling. So the Kavanaugh testimony, I believe, was on Thursday, the 26th.
Right.
Right. 2 days later, on Saturday, she made a cursory examination of 13 different media outlets to the very same story at the very same time period. So 48 hours later, approximately, she goes through. So if you'll just look at the chart and remember, the vertical axis has to do with general news quality, and then the horizontal axis from left to right, left representing left-leaning, progressive liberal, then the center, and then the right. So these are news sources, and if you go on her site, you can see her thinking pattern, her critical thinking, how she places them. So, Marcus, if you could put up, just kind of go through 1 through 9. I think I only clipped 9 of the images from Otero, but just kind of go through briefly. You'll see this is alternate. So this would be extremely left-leaning. Okay, and maybe you can call out the titles since you can read them.
Okay, and this is Huffington Post. This is also left-leaning, not as extreme as the other one. So are you kind of going from left to right?
Yes, these go in order according to Otero's chart, from left-leaning.
And this is getting into a critique of Lindsey Graham's outburst in the. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one there. So Slate, a little closer to center, really?
Correct, according to Otero's chart.
Interesting. Okay, I find that interesting. I like Slate. That's one of my go-tos there. And one of the reporters I was talking about, bless you, she silently sneezed, and so I'm blessing her, is a Slate reporter there. But this Kavanaugh is permanently toxic. With that, then WAPO, the Washington Post, we're coming a little bit more now center as we go. And what's up after that one?
New York Times.
New York Times, okay. And I can't read that headline. How are 3? It's too far away.
Kavanaugh.
I'm reading the one underneath the image. Okay, so keep going. Okay. What's the next one there? Oh, then the WSJ. Okay.
Owned by Rupert Murdoch.
We're right smack in the middle there on that as we go. Next.
I think we're slightly light-leaning.
Oh, okay.
But pretty neutral, but slightly to the right. Okay.
To the right. Okay. Then the National Review.
More to the right.
That's a go-to for me. To, I guess, get a right perspective. It still has depth and validity to it.
Yes, it does. Analysis going for it.
That might be surprising to some of our viewers here. I'm not sure what this is from here.
This would be to the right of the National Review, and it looks like it's clipped off the identifier on that. Why the Senate's ritual defamation? Which one is it?
Federalist. The Federalist.
The Federalist.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty calm for the Federalist. All right, keep
ritual
going.
Defamation, yeah.
And then
Breitbart, your fave.
So I have to tell you about it. Is this the last one? Or
I think this is the
one more?
last one. I think that's the last one I clicked.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go ahead and take us back. So I did an interesting experiment with this last night with my critical thinking class.
Okay.
And it was Otero's 3.0 version that I had that I projected up onto the whiteboard. And we've had a pretty good clash in this room, the majority of them being pretty conservative.
Okay.
There.
No surprise.
In a lot of things. And and that's what we deal with here. That's fine. I reiterate that I love them all despite, what's going on. Anyway, so I had a number of dry erase markers, and I asked each one, there's 32 people in this class, to go up to the board and just put a dot, just put a mark in what would represent maybe where you are as far as that media is concerned. What do you go to?
You mean, do you identify as
which one do you identify?
Center or liberal or conservative?
Well, but the media itself too there.
Okay.
And I left the room because I didn't want to go through and maybe influence or I left the room and I put mine up there first and I put it on NPR, my mark, and then I left the room. And a few minutes later I came back, everybody had sat down. And there was this interesting pattern that leaned right and right down the Fox bubble on the right hand side. And I wasn't surprised by that there. Okay, so over the course of that conversation, as we're talking about this, I said, are you surprised by the outcome of this? Or, how do you feel? And I had one student said, I'm going to be totally honest. What I watched is down in the far right-hand lower corner. It's Breitbart. But even with you out of the room, I was too afraid to go through and be honest in declaring what it is that I'm watching to begin with.
That's profound. And why was she afraid to declare? Because she wants to stay in the tribe and be thought well of and be protected from the tiger and the bus.
Yeah, I really love your tiger bus analogy thing going on here. So I was surprised by that. I was taken aback by it. The research for me went, oh man, that was a flawed kind of a poll in putting that out there. But okay, so I said, everybody put your heads down on your desk right now. like in first grade, right?
Yeah.
And they all did.
There
were a couple who were resistant, who I think you just wanted to watch the process. Right. I said, now, for those of you who misrepresented your dot, would you raise your hand?
Right,
Okay,
out of
about
fear.
About a third of the room's hands.
Oh, this is powerful. I'm going to rip this off. I'm going to use this in my classes.
Do it.
This is
great.
It
was fascinating.
Yeah.
And it led to some great conversation as to why they bandwagoned the tribe thing. I didn't want anybody thinking differently of me. The one who said she would have been far right, she goes, because I knew you would have looked at that dot and said, who the hell is this?
It would have ferreted me out.
But I wouldn't have.
Right,
I mocked that a little bit, but certainly, excuse me, the classroom has to be a safe place in a way, not a politically correct place necessarily, but at least where people can go through and be honest about, what it is they're talking about. I was fascinated by it.
I love that idea. I'm going to definitely use that in my classes.
So, when we first talked about the show this morning, you were talking about gender bias really as a topic coming into this.
Yes.
So we have this political bias, this left-wing, right-wing kind of thing going on that might, but how does gender factor into where we go?
I'm wondering if gender shows up in the credibility we give to women and the defense we offer to men. We mentioned last week the comment, I think it was Lindsey Graham saying he wasn't going to ruin Brett Kavanaugh's life.
Right.
This was before the hearing, before all these other people come out of the woodwork. Ruin his life.
It's actually kind of during that. It was during...
well, we did this on Wednesday, and the testimony was Thursday. That's the point I'm making.
Right, but there were other accusations coming out at the time.
Right. But the whole idea that Brett Kavanaugh's career is somehow more important than a woman's veracity.
Lindsey Graham's diatribe happened in Thursday's hearing. And it was after Kavanaugh, and it was during the questioning that was going on from the Democratic side. Graham then pipes off when he wags his finger over to the left-hand side and says, you're ruining America, basically, by destroying this man. And it was during the Blasey Ford Kavanaugh section of that. And
I don't want to skip over, I don't want to miss the incident that Senator Flake suffered in the elevator with the two women who cornered him outside of his office, right, and followed him in and blocked the elevator and made him listen. And the point I want to make there is that in my class we're studying in voice and civility and public discourse how to be persuasive in making an argument to or an assertion to your elected representative. As a citizen, how do you get your voice heard and how do you be persuasive? So we go by Aristotle's 3 elements of persuasion, right? Okay. Ethos, pathos, and logos. Right. And I thought it's the pathos that got past Jeff Flake's desire to be supportive of the nomination process that was going forward. He felt briefly for a minute the anguish these women had suffered and their emotional distress. So again, I want to call up the fact of how vulnerable we are as humans to the emotional persuasion.
I believe you're right generally, but in terms of Jeff Flake, no, not in the least bit. I think his response to that was purely theater. there. I don't know if you've watched it. He tries to close the elevator door 3 times
yes.
during this woman's confrontation.
Absolutely.
He's clearly uncomfortable with it. Then he goes back behind the door so the one camera can't pick him up as well.
Yeah.
He's not listening to her. He's trying to defend himself and get the hell out of there.
Then why does he change his mind?
He has no choice.
No political choice.
He has no public choice, no public relations choice, no.
Okay, that's a little cynical.
I'll cop to skeptical.
Or skeptic. Okay, you'll cop to skeptical.
We got to wrap it up. We got 10 seconds here.
All right.
We'll probably pick this up next week. And thanks again for joining us.
Maybe you shouldn't say that.
Another 30 minutes. Yeah, who knows what's going to happen. I'm Eric Young with Talking Point Live.
Jennifer Kohler.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next Wednesday.